The Republican frontrunner for governor jumps into the race, refusing to say if she thinks our elections are rigged, and saying that she's erasing her past positions as a business practice. A Colorado radio host who called for a COVID vaccine boycott dies of COVID. The religious objection he raised, that others are now echoing, rules out the use of many of our modern medicines. Denver considers cash for vaccinations and for people who claim exemptions, and a sign that bikes are not allowed in the bike lane. Why is everything so strange today? That's next. The person who could be Colorado's first Republican governor in a long time will not say if she believes in President Trump's big lie. University of Colorado Regent Heidi Ganahl started campaigning for governor today. She is the only Republican to hold statewide office. When politics guy Marshall Zellinger asked her if she believes our elections are rigged, she would not directly answer. The topic came up after Marshall asked her about scrubbing away social media posts expressing past support of President Trump prior to running for governor.
For people that want to get to know you and might want to know, what did you say and think about the January 6th insurrection? Or what do you think about COVID restrictions in the state? All of that proof that you might have said it on Twitter is now deleted. Why not leave it there for someone to be able to view and for you to answer questions about?
Oh my gosh, Marshall, there's a world outside of Twitter. There's a lot of ways to learn about me and what I do. But honestly, I've had a policy as a business person to clean up my social media every few months for years. It's not anything new. So I was kind of shocked by the hoopla over it.
Everything before May 31st is gone.
Yeah, and I do that every few months. So if you go back, every few months, clean it out. Facebook,
Why?
Twitter. I don't think that's important. I think what's important is what's wrong with Colorado right now and the direction we're headed in. This is kind of silly to spend our time together talking about Twitter when crime is skyrocketing and our kids, the suicide rate is out of control here. No one's talking about that. As a mom, that just ticks me off. Our kids are dying. That's serious. That's more important to talk about.
As a Republican, as anybody, do you think there was fraud in the 2020 election?
Again, why all the divisive questions? Let's talk about what unites Colorado. And what unites Colorado is that our kids are in trouble, crime is skyrocketing, the cost of living is out of control, small businesses are being shuttered. That's what the people of Colorado are focused on and what I want to focus on in my race. And let's talk about the future and building a better future for Colorado.
What's the best thing that Governor Polis has done in the COVID-19 pandemic? And then I'll ask you, what's the worst thing he's done? But what's the best thing he has done?
Well, I think the best thing he's done is try and stay calm and focused and, communicate with us about his decisions. I disagree with many of his decisions. I think the nursing home debacle last fall is not getting talked about. That's a really serious issue, and the news just kind of shoved it under the carpet.
That last reference to the nursing homes is about a June investigation by Colorado Public Radio reporter Ben Marcus. It uncovered the state's COVID testing and contact tracing were overwhelmed in late 2020 while nursing home deaths were rising to double the national average. That question was the last of my interview, and I didn't get a chance to follow up then, but I emailed a follow-up asking what she would have done that Polis did not. And Kyle, the short answer she provided was, quote, everything.
She would have done everything. This is where it would be helpful to be able to go back and say, like, when this issue was going on and Governor Polis did X, Heidi Ganahl was saying, let's do Y. But that's what she's erased so that people can't go back and see that. So about the larger question about somebody running for governor and whether they think elections are rigged, that's a question that's going to come up a bunch of times. And the question for Colorado Republicans is whether they're going to keep doing the President Trump, our elections are rigged thing or move in a different direction. She's going to stick with Trump on this.
You look at the number of unaffiliated voters we have in this state, and it's a relevant question. And I've talked with David Flaherty from Magellan Strategies, the conservative-leaning polling firm that helped us out on election night, and he told me his polling showed 9 out of 10 Republicans support Trump. So you still have to speak to that base if you're going to win a primary to be the Republican nominee that gets the chance to face Polis. And then the question becomes, will you answer that question when the unaffiliated voters are going to vote in November?
Well, hopefully she doesn't do the every couple of months scrubbing of her record, or you need to keep videotape because we're going to want to go back and check the answers. All right. Thank you, Marshall. President Biden came to Colorado today, first visit as president. He pointed to the recent mudslide closures of I-70 as the kind of climate change-driven infrastructure damage that President Biden wants America to spend trillions of dollars to repair and prevent.
Extreme weather cost America last year $99 billion. $99 billion extreme weather cost last year. And it's going to break the record this year. It's going to be well over $100 billion. We know what the driver is, climate change. We know what's causing climate change, human activity. This is no longer subject to debate. And I might add, windmills do not cause cancer.
The windmills cause cancer thing was a fantasy promoted by former President Trump. President Biden concluded his speech at NREL out in Golden today, saying that climate issues made worse by humans can be made better by humans. And with that, the president shook some hands, he kissed a crying baby, and he headed out of Colorado. A Colorado talk radio host who called for a boycott of COVID-19 vaccines has died of COVID-19. Bob Enyart's been on radio, podcasts, and cable TV dating back decades in our state. He was known for mocking AIDS victims as he read their obituaries aloud on television. Enyart more recently said that he opposed the COVID vaccines because of the fetal stem cells used in their development and testing. Declaring a religious exemption to the COVID-19 vaccines due to that link with those decades-old fetal stem cell line. It would also mean boycotting most common medications these days. Steve Steger explains.
Fetal stem cell lines are cell lines that are used in scientific research and particularly in product development and testing.
The cells at the center of this debate over the vaccine, they've been around for a while.
So these are cell lines that were originally derived from fetal tissue, from aborted fetuses, many of them back in the 70s and 80s. And they've been immortalized and retained and passaged again and again.
Dr. James Lawler is an infectious disease expert at the University of Nebraska Medical Center.
There's no fetal cells in these preparations. They are the descendants, the progeny of these original fetal cells that have been grown in cell culture and have replicated over and over.
He's also a practicing Catholic.
And I understand why people have concerns. But the bottom line is almost all of the medical products that we use have in some way been touched by research that's been done in fetal cell lines.
Even Tylenol and other drugs you'd find on the shelf at your pharmacy.
You would be hard-pressed to find a lot of drugs or vaccines that we use on a daily basis, even over-the-counter drugs that did not in some way have some testing done in fetal cell lines.
And that creates an interesting ethical conundrum for those folks who've rejected the COVID vaccine.
To be intellectually consistent, people would have to essentially refuse almost all modern pharmaceutical products.
The Catholic Church and other faith organizations have come out to say the benefits of getting the vaccine far outweigh any ethical concerns about its development. Lawler agrees.
All of that, to me, is something that my faith and the church's teachings seem to indicate. It's paramount for us to control this pandemic, to be able to reduce its impact on those more vulnerable.
Lawler told me today that there are legitimate arguments to be made about how drug development and the medical scientific community could look for different strategies that don't use cells from this fetal line. But he said, for now, it truly is the standard. In fact, you're going to have a tougher time getting a drug approved by the FDA because the FDA tends to look for this because it's such a standardized sample. They want to be able to compare data between different labs and different sources.
I think for some people who are just now looking into this issue of do I have a religious objection to a medicine, the vaccine, they may not realize the box that they open up if they say, well, I'm not going to take the vaccine because of its linked to fetal stem cell tissue. Well, then you're basically opting out of modern medicine. People of faith have been thinking about this question deeply for a while.
Struggling with it for a very long time. In fact, in the Catholic Church's writing about the COVID vaccine, they say, this is not to say that we endorse the way that this vaccine was developed, just that the moral obligation here is to try to end the pandemic, end the suffering of people who are vulnerable, and that at this point outweighs the way that the vaccine was developed.
That's where the Catholic Church came down. All right, Steve, thank you. We look at the hospitalization picture in our state for COVID-19, and they continue to tick up. We are at 921 patients in our hospitals, up 7 in the last day. We had 862 patients this time last week, so it's clear that the rate of increase is slowing slightly from where it was at the beginning of the month. Obviously, vast majority of those patients unvaccinated. The reusable masks that vaccinated Coloradans got to put away for, what was it, just like a couple of weeks over the summer, they still work. A new study from CU Boulder found that washing and drying out our cloth masks for a year does not reduce their effectiveness. The study looked at the kind of cloth with 2 layers of cotton. That's what the experts recommend. And they washed it up to 52 times. The masks were then tested in humidity and temperature conditions, which are designed to mimic our breathing on them. The combination of a surgical mask and a cotton mask continues to provide even more protection. And now, all of this, of course, assumes that people are wearing their masks properly. Previous research has shown that wearing a mask poorly means you're popping as many as 50% more airborne particles about the room.
Our employees' vaccination status has a direct impact on the safety of a member of the public.
A reward for Denver City employees who get the vaccine would also go to their colleagues who take a religious or medical exemption. Tickets to the greatest outdoor venue in the world in the palm of your hand, as long as you're willing to let Amazon scan that palm. Next.
All about location, location, location today. A couple of severe storms out there. However, they're primarily south and east of downtown Denver. We do have a severe thunderstorm watch in place until 9 p.m. for the far southeastern corner of Colorado. As we zoom in here on HD Doppler 9, you'll notice not a lot going on here in the urban corridor, but we'll zoom on a cluster of strong thunderstorms in Lincoln, Crowley counties, putting off quite the light show. Tonight we'll be watching these thunderstorms push out by about 9-10 o'clock. Temps falling into the 40s and 50s in eastern Colorado, and that storm moving out, high pressure moving back in. The sunshine in full swing for you tomorrow, as well as the above average temperatures. We soar back into the upper 80s, low 90s here for the metro area, 70s and 80s up to the high country. We go warmer from here, 93 on Thursday, brief cool off Friday, but the 90-degree heat is back for the weekend. Look at that change up though in the weather pattern. Sweater weather next Tuesday.
Big Bezos would like to read your palm to get into the next Red Rocks show. What could possibly go wrong with giving Amazon a scan of your palm print to use in place of a ticket? We asked Access, Red Rocks concert promoter, which is promoting the new technology.
We sort of give and take in our world with data and with trust, and I think Amazon is inherently one of the most trusted brands. Consumer scores, consumer ratings, on-time scores, delivery ratings. So we feel really good that the Palm data, which is wholly stored on the Amazon side of things, is secure, it's safe, and it won't be compromised.
The Amazon Palm scanning in place of concert tickets being tested out right now at tonight's Alice in Wonderland show. If things go well, it'll be rolled out as a voluntary option in other places. On a side note, you ever talk about the right way to pronounce something so many times that you screw it up when it's finally time to do it? That was us in the office today with Access versus AXS. It's Access. I got it wrong on the TV. Denver's going to give cash to vaccinated employees, but says it does not expect that will increase the numbers.
There's been a lot of talk and confusion about this as a mechanism to, hey, we all want higher vaccination rates.
An answer for a next viewer wondering if the federal government has ever forced Americans to get vaccinated before. And it's a sign that you can't ride your bike on the bike trail. We continue our exploration of our state of confusion. Next. Denver's going to give cash to city employees who are vaccinated or who get the shot real soon. Though the city says it doesn't expect that the money is going to motivate unvaccinated employees to get the shot. They are calling it a reward for a choice already made. You can decide for yourself.
There is no expectation that spending $5.7 million will get a single additional employee vaccinated than who would have been vaccinated by complying to a required part of their work. Is that correct?
This is that is correct. This is a recognition, not an incentive.
Right. But it is correct that we are not anticipating to have a single extra vaccine in an arm because of this program.
Again, it's a recognition program, not an incentive.
What seemed to stick out to some on Denver City Council is that city employees who skip the vaccine for medical or religious reasons still get the cash bonus.
it feels to me like paying a reward to someone for their religion. And that is not, I don't think what we in government should be in the business of doing is paying you because of your religious beliefs. We should be paying people who have taken active steps to prevent the transmission of COVID.
Councilwoman Robin Kniech there asked if employees who get a religious exemption from the vaccination might be able to earn the bonus money by doing other things like wearing masks or doing regular testing. The city's chief financial officer basically said they want to pay out these bonuses before that happens. City Council's decided to delay its decision on the vaccine bonuses until the end of the month. Tonight's next question comes from Ruth in Arapahoe County. She reached out after hearing a politician claim that federal vaccine mandates are unheard of, that's always been a state issue.
My question for you is, has there ever been a national vaccination mandate for school entry or for the entire population as a whole? Or are they always at a state level?
Great question, Ruth. We took it to Erin Seedorf, health professions teacher at MSU Denver and their public health program coordinator.
The power of public health policy actually falls to the states through the power of police power in the states. And really that authority is reserved to the states, and it basically gives the states power to have reasonable regulations established really to protect the health and safety of the public. There are powers within the federal government to do policies within their jurisdiction. So with federal employees or contractors, or maybe within the workforce. But beyond that, the power of local policy does fall to the states.
Bottom line, Seedorf says there's never been a federal vaccine requirement for the general public. There have long been federal requirements for members of the military to get vaccinated. Seedorf says the state's vaccine mandates date back to the early 1800s in various states and now exist in all 50 states, at least for school kids. The Biden administration is looking to get around this by using federal workplace safety rules through OSHA for its rule, which is vaccine or weekly testing at large employers. If you have a question, we know people who can get you answers. Record a video or an audio message of yourself asking that question. Email it to next@9news.com. As we always say, if you are wondering, someone else is too. It's a sign that contradicts the sign behind it. We'll sort through that maze and your feedback next. It's a sign that somebody forgot to pick up after the Rocky Mountain Showdown football game last weekend. Rob spotted signs along the South Platte River Trail this morning, right there on the bike trail. The sign says no bicycles, pedicab, scooters, solicitation, or peddlers beyond this point. One of those signs is even posted right in front of a permanent sign that identifies this as a pedestrian and bike trail. The conflicting signals or signs are because the Broncos have a permit to block cyclists from that stadium area near the light rail on game days, but not any other time. City told us today it looked like somebody just forgot to remove the temporary signs after last Saturday's college football game. Feedback from Jennifer Mindala tonight on Steve Steger's story about all of the modern medicines that would be ruled out if somebody says they have a religious opposition to the fetal stem cell line used in the development and testing of COVID vaccines. Jennifer says, "Thank you for that very useful information. Interesting revelation deserving objective thinking as demonstrated by the researcher." Yeah, not a simple issue discussed. A lot of thoughtful people have opinions on it. Hey, speaking of, Dennis Sheridan says Kyle Clark is a vessel of vomit. Hate next. Worst show ever. Dennis, we appreciate your continued viewership. We'll see you next time.